rest of us a few more decades to not just come to accept that they were right, but to try and understand why they were right.
Andrew, I'm a believer in a divine intelligence, a higher power. When you read Genesis in the Bible, if you kind of think of these transdimensional intelligences with the angels and things like that, is it conceivable that that's what they were witnessing?
Well, absolutely. I mean, in 2019, I went to Mount Gerizim, which is today towers above the Palestinian city of Nablus. And on the mountain is a community known as the Samaritans. And they claim to be the original Israelites, the original descendants of them. And I actually went to one of the highest-ranking priests, and I said to him, through an interpreter that I took with me, I said, are these strange lights still seen on the mountain today? And he said, absolutely. And I said, well, what are they? And he just said the word Malak. And for those that, understand Arabic and other Semitic languages, they'll know that word means angels. So today, those manifestation sort of UFOs are seen as God's messengers, angels, appearing on that mountain. And it's still happening to this day. And I believe that these are the same lights that were witnessed by Abraham and Jacob and the other early patriarchs of the book of Genesis, but also I think even earlier by the Khazan people, as much as 400,000 years ago. It's the same thing, the same phenomena, the same intelligences that have been with us all along. These are the original ancient aliens.
Now, tell me, Andrew, where does the Ark of the Covenant fit in with all of this?
Well, the Ark of the Covenant is something, obviously, we all know from Indiana Jones films. It was mentioned by Eric von Daniken in his books about ancient astronauts. And
the Bible writes about it.
Yeah. Obviously, we know that it comes from the book of Genesis. And the story, of course, the book of Exodus. I must correct myself there. And, of course, the story is that Moses went to the top of Mount Sinai, and here he encounters God in the form of this light manifestation. So, again, what we're talking about, plasma manifesting in front of him. And God tells him how to create a device that would allow not only him to communicate, Moses to communicate with God whenever he wanted, but also to allow God to be carried around in a mobile fashion within this box, which we know as the Ark of the Covenant. And very specific instructions were given by God to achieve this, to create this Ark of the Covenant. So then obviously the Israelites carry it around for the 40 years they spend in the wilderness. And then eventually they cross over the River Jordan into the Promised Land, which obviously we know today as the Palestinian territories and Israel. And where is the first place that they make for with the Ark of the Covenant? And the answer is Mount Gerizim. Mount Gerizim, and they come into the city of Nablus, which was anciently known as Shechem, and they do this incredible ceremony there, not only using Mount Gerizim, but another mountain that faces it called Mount Ebla. And they do this incredible ritual, and God manifests in this form of light over the Ark of the Covenant, again, in this form that's known as the Shekinah, the light of God or the presence of God. And what I put in the book, what Greg and I put in there, is, images showing this event, done by various artists across the centuries to show, just to actually get people to say, well, what actually is this like? What's going on? How can God manifest in this way? What is this like? And of course, it's plasma, and it's no coincidence that the Israelites, by now under Joshua, by the way, Moses had died before they crossed the River Jordan. They come back to Shechem, the very dwelling place of God, to communicate with him in this powerful manner, using the Ark of the Covenant once more. I mean, all of this is something which I find fascinating and puts a different spin on the Ark of the Covenant and what it represents. In other words, it's almost like a mobile form of this holy mountain, Mount Gerizim, this dwelling place of God, this house of God, where he'd occupied since the beginning of creation, because that's what the Samaritans, and the early Israelites believed, that God had always been on that mountain since he created the world. That's why he was there. That was his. This was the center of their world, and obviously in much later traditions, Jerusalem takes over that same role. But Jerusalem doesn't appear in the early books of the Bible at all. It's only much later that the Israelites split into two, and that some of the tribes go off and create a new center in Jerusalem. And of course, they were the ones that gave us the Hebrew Bible that we know today. But the Samaritans have a much earlier form of the Bible, which still has much earlier accounts of what occurred during these early days. And this is something else that I bring out in my part of the book. This is a story that needs to be told. The Samaritans, if you go there, try to stress to you that, the original mountain of God was Gerizim, and all of the evidence seems to suggest that they're correct.
Now, are you also saying that the extraterrestrials that may have visited this planet did not come from other planetary systems, but definitely interdimensional systems?
I think we're dealing with two different things here, and I think this is where a lot of the confusion has come in. Because I think Carl Sagan was a great cosmologist, astronomer, TV personality, did TV shows and that. He wrote a scientific paper in the early 1960s that concluded that it was inevitable that Earth, humanity, had been visited by what we refer to today as extraterrestrials on many occasions. In fact, he even suggested looking in Sumerian texts, ancient texts, for possible evidence of these early visitations. This is Carl Sagan, one of the greatest cosmologists that's ever existed. And so if he says that, and he concluded this, and this guy obviously went on to work with NASA in various different projects, I see no reason to doubt the fact that nuts and bolts spacecraft with, flesh and blood, aliens have visited this planet and may still be doing so today. But there's something else happening as well, and I think that is that we are dealing with interdimensional intelligences, interdimensional beings that can not just visit us, but influence human evolution, and that this has been going on arguably as long as humanity has been around, since we created the first multifaceted hand axe as much as 1.7 million years ago.
Fascinating work, Andrew. It truly is. Where do people get your book, Origins of the Gods? Origins
of the Gods is available right now from Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or obviously any other good online bookshop or any physical bookshop. It's available at this time. You can order.